If you just started playing the saxophone, I have 5 tips for you that I think can really help your playing out. All of this advice are things that I wish that I would have heard when I started playing my horn, and I would like to share that with you today. So let's jump right in. My first tip for you is to listen to great saxophone players all the time. The reason for this is to get a reference as to what a great saxophone sound is supposed to sound like. When you first start playing this instrument, your tone, your intonation, your overall sound is not going to be fantastic. And that's okay because that's where everyone starts when they jump on the horn for the first time. But we need to have something to aim for so that we have a good idea in mind of what our tone should sound like. As you practice and listen and practice and listen and go back and forth between these ideas, what you're doing is taking the things that you hear from the pros and you're trying to put that into your own playing. What does the tone sound like? What do different registers when you play high and low sound like? All these different things that you're going to hear in these recordings, you can try to copy when you practice your own instrument. If you don't have an idea of where to start with good saxophone players, I'm gonna make a separate video here in the future to give you some tips, but for the time being, I'm gonna go ahead and put some links in the description below to some recordings that I think give a really good example of what a good saxophone is supposed to sound like. So if you've never checked anything out like that, that should be a great starting point. My second tip for you is to practice as much as you can, but rather than practice lots and lots of hours, try to think more about practicing consistently. What I mean by this is that it is much better to have a consistent daily routine of practicing, maybe 20 to 30 minutes, than it is to practice your saxophone for, I don't know, a couple hours once or twice a week. The reason for this is because developing a consistent daily routine helps you remember the things that you work on, and you are going to improve at a much faster rate if you do it this way. For me personally, I've gone back and forth between both of these methods, practicing for several hours once or twice a week to practicing just a little bit every day, and every single time I have felt like a better saxophone player when I focus more on consistency rather than big chunks of time. My brain remembers things better, my fingers feel better, my embouchure feels better, and even though it's just 20 or 30 minutes, I feel like I'm getting more done in those short chunks than I do in those 1 or 2 or even 3-hour practice sessions when I've isolated it into certain areas of the week. My third tip for you is to find a private lessons teacher if you can. Now, I know this is difficult for some people because maybe where you live, you don't have access to a private teacher, or maybe you do, but it's just a little bit too expensive for you at the moment, which I definitely understand. However, if you have access to a teacher and can afford them, I can't begin to tell you the amount of progress that you will see working with them. Having someone who really understands the saxophone and music just sit with you and observe you and listen to you and watch you. They're going to be able to look and point out all the things that you're doing wrong in your playing to help you get better. And it's not as scary as it seems. It might seem like an intimidating thing to have someone in the same room with you listen to you, but if they're a good teacher, they're going to encourage you and show you these things in a way that doesn't break you down or make you feel bad. As a matter of fact, you should leave the lesson feeling good. You should feel like you accomplished something. Or maybe if you didn't accomplish something, that you understand something a little bit better so that you can go practice it. There's really nothing like having that individual attention with you and your teacher and them giving you the tools for you to have some success with the saxophone. If you can't find or can't afford a teacher, some alternatives would be just to find some different tutorials on YouTube. And I've actually used quite a few tutorials myself for some things that I wanted to learn about. And YouTube is amazing. There are so many different content creators right now, especially for the saxophone, giving you tools and tips and advice like this to help you get better. And even though nothing really compares to a private lesson with one-on-one attention with a teacher, I'm going to be making videos in the future on the fundamentals of saxophone to at least give you an idea of where to start with some of these things. My fourth tip for you is to learn to read music and to play by ear. One of the most challenging things for people who are completely new to music is reading music. And I definitely remember being there myself. It can be really confusing. There are all these crazy symbols that you're supposed to know all about. There's feeling the beat, there's counting the beats, there's counting the rests, there's knowing all the names of the staff, of the lines and spaces. And then you're supposed to take all of that and somehow play something with it with this awkward instrument. So I've seen a lot of students in those same shoes, and they sort of end up giving up on trying to read music and sort of faking it and trying to learn mostly by ear. And I want to encourage you that if you spend daily time working on reading music, you're gonna get a lot better, and it makes it way easier to do. It's sort of just like learning to read a book. When you were a young kid, you were probably reading almost every single day, and that's how you learn to read. And the same thing goes with music. Consistency is going to be king, and it becomes so fun too to be able to read music. Now, on the other end of that, I'm not saying don't learn to play by ear, because I think it is a really, really, really crucial skill that every musician needs to have. What I mean by this is that you should be able to figure out some simple melodies here in the beginning just by ear. You shouldn't use music. You should use only your ears to try to figure these things out. An example would be maybe just some easy melodies like Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, Mary Had a Little Lamb, Row 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 Your Boat, just simple songs and melodies that you can sing basically in your sleep. You're not going to ever forget these things. Try to play them on your saxophone. And then once you get good at that, maybe try to listen to an easy song, a simple song that you like. It could be any genre, and pick out the main melody and figure that out on your instrument. What this does is it exercises our ear in listening to music and trying to make the connection between our ear and the saxophone. And for me, I personally think that if you can read music and use your ears to play music, to figure music out, those two things together make a killer musician, because you can have a piece of music to read and you're also very aware of the music that's happening around you. You're able to make musical choices on the fly. My fifth and final tip for you is to make music with other people. And this is what music for me is all about. Sharing the music with other people around us. It's really important to spend time practicing this on your own so that you have an idea of what you need to do to get better, but then you should take those things that you're practicing and go connect with someone else. Maybe play some duets or a trio or a quartet if you're able to. It is so much more fun to share a musical experience with someone else playing an instrument beside you. It doesn't even have to be a saxophone. You could go play with literally anything. You could go play with a drummer, with a trumpet player. You could go play with a whole trombone ensemble. You could go play with a singer. For me, that's what it's all about. It always comes back to sharing that music with someone else. And you also wouldn't believe about how much it's going to make you better. It forces you to get outside of your own head, to use your ears and to make something happen together, connect together. And not to mention, it's just fun. It's really fun to make music with other people. Whether that be 2 people or 200 people, I love connecting with other fellow musicians, no matter the genre, no matter the instrumentation. For me, I love that connection, and I think you will too if you've never tried it. If you have any questions or confusions about anything, or just want to say hi, go ahead and drop those in the comments below. I read every single one and do my best to get back to you all. And if you want me to make a video on any sort of thing in the future, go ahead and drop that in there too. Sometimes I just kind of forget about different questions that you might have. So if there's something that you want me to talk about, I would love to hear from you, and I'd love to make a video that would help you with anything related to the saxophone and making music. So I hope this has been helpful. Thanks for stopping by. Have fun making some music.
Whoa, 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 make some music with Stoked on Sax.